You're listening to Fire Ecology Chats, a podcast series by the Association for Fire Ecology.
Hello, everyone. My name is Bob Keane. I'm the editor-in-chief of the internationally renowned journal Fire Ecology. Fire Ecology is a Springer Nature publication, and it is managed by Springer Nature and overseen by the Association of Fire Ecology, AFI. Today, we're going to talk about a very special paper. We rarely have people that come on from countries other than the US and talk about their paper. We have a paper today, and it's two people that are going to come on and talk about the impacts of a short interval severe fire on forest structure and regeneration in temperate Andean, Araucaria, and Arroyo-Vargas forests. Today, we have Paola and Andrés with us. Paola, can you introduce yourself and tell us all about you?
Yeah, hello Bob. My name is Paola Arroyo-Vargas. I'm from Chile. I did my PhD there in the US, and now I'm working as a postdoctoral researcher at Laboratorio de Ecosistemas y Bosques at the Universidad de la Frontera, of La Frontera University. This is a great opportunity to share about this work.
Wonderful and welcome. And Andrés and I have done a lot of things together, so I was very pleased that he was able to make it on this podcast. Andrés?
Hi, Bob. Hi, everyone. Thanks again for having us. I'm excited to be here with Paola to tell you about this paper. I'm also originally from Chile, and I'm here based in Portland, Oregon. I'm an associate professor at Portland State University.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, both of you, for taking your time to talk about this incredibly interesting paper. We're going to try something new with this podcast. We're going to do a Spanish translation for the first question. So what is going to happen is that she's going to talk about the question in English, and then we're going to do it in Spanish. So, Bella, can you tell us about the paper?
Yeah, sure. The title says Impacts of Short Intervals with Fire in this type of forest. The importance of this type of study is because our forests here in southern Chile, they have evolved with a low to moderate frequency of fire and every couple decades or centuries. And we had a recent fire that was in 2002 and 2015, really short period between two fires. And it was a good opportunity to study how the vegetation responds after that, specifically the trees, how the regeneration of the main trees that dominate this structure are affected because this type of fire, which is the first sign of change of the fire regime in these areas. So we compare this type of responses in an area affected by single wildfire that it didn't have any other fires at least the last 60 years, and the other area where we had two wildfires with a really short interval of time between them. So we wanted to see those differences and how these forests respond after this type of wildfire. We had really interesting results about it, basically because we have some species that are adapted to fire because they have a really thick bark and they self-prune their lower branches. But there are other species that they are not adapted to fire. But some of them can resprout after fire and some others cannot resprout after fire.
Now we're going to try something new. Andrés, could you ask the question in Spanish, and Paola, can you answer it in Spanish?
Yeah, great. Ok, Paola, cuéntanos por qué este paper es importante y de qué se trata el paper en resumen.
Básicamente porque los bosques que estudiamos en este paper está asociado a lugares que fueron afectados por dos incendios en un corto periodo de tiempo, y son bosques donde su régimen de incendio es muy prolongado, o sea, es de poca frecuencia o poca frecuencia entre un incendio y otro, y no severos, pero ocurrió el hecho de que tuvimos dos incendios severos en un tipo de bosque que no está adaptado para eso, y lo comparamos con otro lugar similar, pero que tuvo solamente un incendio. Entonces queríamos evaluar el efecto de estos incendios en la regeneración arbórea y cómo respondían a este cambio de régimen de fuego en estos lugares.
Super, gracias. All yours, Bob.
Thank you very much. That was great. I hope our Spanish speakers appreciate it, our Spanish listeners. So, Andrés, I look at this paper and think, Araucaria, Arroyo-Vargas, that doesn't concern me. So why should people care about the results of this paper? Because after reading it, I certainly care.
Yeah, that's a great question. So for us in North America, we're experiencing obviously rapidly changing fire regimes, and there's big concerns about changes in pathways in forest structure, composition, and regeneration patterns. And there's a lot that we can learn when it comes down to really rapid changes due to short interval, or also called reburns, that we see in fire. And so in the Southern Hemisphere, places like Tasmania, Southeast Australia, and also in Patagonia, we've been seeing very rapid changes in fire regimes and entire local populations wipe out, extirpations. And also, it's very interesting, in this paper, we had the opportunity to compare different functional groups. In other words, obligate seeders versus other species that can resprout. And it's fascinating to understand how, under certain conditions, we see both doing well or actually both collapsing. And in addition to that, we have a paleoendemic species such as Araucaria, which perhaps here in North America, we can emotionally think about sequoias or western red cedars that have cultural values, also experiencing very rapid changing climate and wildfires.
Yeah, that's what I found fascinating about the paper is that you could take the results and really apply them to a lot of other ecosystems of the world. So Paola, what were the lessons you learned from doing the study?
In these areas, after two severe wildfires, some species that have some adaptation to fire, they are collapsing because this really short interval of time between one fire and another doesn't allow the species to establish again. Because in the case of Araucaria, it's an endangered species, it needs about 25 to 30 years to produce the new seeds to establish in the ecosystem. So if we have these two fires in a really short period of time, this type of disturbance it's not allowing the species to reestablish. So we see like a change in the type of ecosystems. Before we had like a forest dominated by Araucaria araucana, then we don't see Araucaria anymore. Even though that Araucaria can resprout in some cases, but if the fire is too severe, we don't see this resprout in the landscape. There are other species resprouting that are not trees, like a Chusquea species, it's like a bamboo species, pretty similar to bamboo, but from Patagonia. So basically the ecosystem changed a lot. So that allows us to understand in which area we have to care about these communities, what are the actions we need to take, or what are the recommendations we have to give to the stakeholders to manage these areas. So I think it's really interesting that this information is available for the people who want to do any restoration actions to have.
Those findings are incredibly interesting. And it made me think, Andrés, why did you do this study? I mean, what's the history behind this study?
Yeah, so this project was funded by the National Science Foundation. And in that project, we were interested in understanding the role of flammability feedbacks, associated mechanisms to really change and shake ecosystem resilience. And so for that, our project funded Paola's PhD program, as well as another PhD student with collaborators on the Argentinians on the drier side of the Andes. So for listeners, this is somewhat of a similar gradient between, let's say, Western and Eastern Oregon through the Cascade Mountains. And so we have studies on both areas where we have monkey passel araucaria forests at the ecotone with the steppe, which would be places like Bend or Sisters in Oregon, all the way through more mesic forests where Paola did her work. The idea is to understand, again, generalize dysfunctional types responses to altered fire regimes, and also to apply translatable science for restoration experiments that we actually are conducting primarily on the eastern side.
Thanks for that, Andrés. That's really important to know. I want to thank you both for telling us about this paper. Paola, I know your co-author list is a who's who of people, so do you want to recognize them or any funding agencies?
Yeah, actually, all the co-authors here, Sebastian Busby, who was also a former student of Andrés during our PhD. So he was a really great support in this work, especially in the beginning of this research here in Southern Chile. But also Thomas Veblen, who is a ecologist that has done work here in Southern Hemisphere, also Northern Hemisphere. He has been like a really good support and also for the discussion and all this stuff related to this manuscript. Mauro Gonzalez, who is also a researcher from here, from Chile, that has studied also this kind of ecosystem. So all this interaction with Andrés too, that he was my advisor when I was doing my PhD, it was a really rich conversation, discussion about the things happening in this type of forest, but also to produce this manuscript that is in the journal.
Thank them all for publishing in Fire Ecology, and thank you too for being with us today. If any listener wants the paper, guess what? You can get it for free from our website. You can download it for free and get it and read it at your leisure. I strongly recommend you do that. Andrés, we're going to do something fun. I was wondering if you could end this podcast by summarizing what we've said over the last 5 minutes in Spanish. So go ahead.
I'll do my best. Este trabajo con Paola se enfocaba en entender las respuestas de grupos funcionales de diferentes rasgos fisiológicos entre poblaciones y especies que solamente se pueden reproducir después de incendios sexualmente versus las otras especies que pueden optar y pueden reproducirse asexualmente vía rebrotes. Y nuestras hipótesis eran que las especies rebrotadoras iban a tener mayor éxito bajo estos incendios repetidos o lo que le llamamos requemas, ¿verdad? En donde bajo estos escenarios de cambio climático que estamos viendo, no escenarios real, cambio climático que estamos viendo, estamos teniendo incendios, 2 incendios dentro de 20, 30 años, donde históricamente esto ocurría dentro de 50 o 150 años. Entonces vimos mucha mortalidad de árboles, especialmente en lugares de alta severidad, y muy poco regeneración, especies que dependen de semillas sexualmente. En cambio vimos bastante rebrote, especialmente de una de las especies que rebrotó abundantemente, incluso bajo la requema en lugares donde fue severamente afectado el bosque que estaba antes de la requema. Estos resultados son importantes porque se pueden extrapolar a otros bosques con similares rasgos funcionales, donde vamos a tratar de entender un poco más la resiliencia y las trayectorias futuras de estos bosques bajo escenarios de cambio climático y de cambios de regímenes de incendio. Gracias. That's it.
Thank you very much, Andrés and Paola. Appreciate your time today. Hopefully, people will join us for the next Fire Ecology Chat. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye, thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Fire Ecology Chats, a podcast series by the Association for Fire Ecology. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe to our show and leave us a review. To learn more about fire ecology and support our future work by becoming a member, visit fireecology.org. FIREECOLOGY.org.